Good evening, everybody. I hope you're enjoying your Saturday. Today, I am talking to you about one of the sonnets in my collection, and part of this is in preparation for a writer's workshop that I'm running from a Discord server. There are events posted on the Between Hindsight and Foresight page. Those events have a link which you can click on to join the Discord server and to join in the workshops. Tomorrow's workshops will be focused on the sonnet, and there are several sonnets in my collection. One of the poems, the first poem in fact, Phantom Idea, was a sonnet that I wrote for a different workshop, a sonnet workshop that I ran a few years ago. I was with a poetry group, and they wanted to run a workshop where they learned about sonnets and about how to write them. And about a month ago, I did a talk on live on Facebook on the Write group, and that went through the history of the sonnet from Petrarch in the 1300s through Milton and Shakespeare and Shelley and a number of other poets who have used the sonnet form. Sonnets are generally used to express love as a main theme or spirituality, but they also express any kind of developing problem that the poet wants to express. It introduces the problem, it develops the problem, and it poses a solution to the problem as it moves through this really, really tight, really, really restricted form. One of the craziest things about sonnets is that they have such strict rules, but they usually are targeted at one of the wildest emotions. And when I was in high school, I went through a phase of really wanting to get all these different ideas, these large emotions into a sonnet form just to see if I could follow all the rules and still capture an idea, because what I loved about sonnets is something that I love about poetry. Poetry is the expression of emotion, experience, ideas, capturing a moment in time like a photograph does, but with words. And most of my poetry is about capturing an emotion that I have felt or an experience I have enjoyed, or even something that I have learned from that was really, really negative at the time, and I revisit occasionally to reflect on what I learned from those negative experiences. Phantom Idea is the first poem in the book, not only because it is about that moment in time where I really wanted to push myself a couple of years ago to write more poetry and think about it as a more active pursuit, and that would eventually lead to a published collection. It's more than that, because Phantom Idea is something that all writers experience. We have these wonderful emotions, these wonderful ideas that keep us from sleeping, that wake us up at night, that tease us by hanging just out of reach, just beyond what we're able to actually express or put into words. And it's very frustrating, but many, many, many poets throughout all of time have written poems about poetry, have written poems about creating poetry or about art of some form. These poems about poetry, or these poems about writing, show the artist's frustration with that. And Phantom Idea is no different. For me, it was an expression of how much I want to capture these ideas, but sometimes it's too trite or too difficult or just gets out of reach. One of the other reasons why I fell in love with sonnets was because every syllable, every word counts. That strict structure I was talking about does confine you. There's no faff, there's no fluffy bits inside of a sonnet. They can't afford to be. Every word, every gesture is meant to complete the idea. Every punctuation mark, every line break has to be carefully considered. And if you're a really technical poet, you think about the meter. I try very, very hard not to think about the meter, because counting syllables and counting ups and downs and in iambic pentameter drives me absolutely crazy. It's far too close to math. But it happens naturally in a rhythm for a sonnet if you really want it to. Once again, the poem for this week is Phantom Idea. This poem was written for a workshop, for a sonnet writing workshop, which is similar to the sonnet writing workshops I will be leading tomorrow at 2 o'clock till 4, and 6 o'clock until 8. And if you're able to drop by and take part in the workshop, I will run through some of the history of sonnets and some of the structure of sonnets and help you try to write your own. And we can talk about the rules, and we can talk about writing poetry, and we can talk about writing sonnets to our loved ones, or as it's Father's Day, maybe you want to write a sonnet as a dedication to your father and send it off to him for a Father's Day present, anything you want to do. But the important thing is that we come together to continue that tradition of writing poems about poems, of writing poems about ideas, about love, about spirituality, about problems. And we can do that together in sonnets or whatever form you want. But this week, my focus is on sonnets. Sorry, this week has been a little later than usual, and this week has been a little bit more rambly than usual. But I appreciate your indulgence and your listening to my stories about how I have created Phantom Idea, that thing we're all trying to catch as writers. Have an excellent week, and I hope to see some of you tomorrow. Bye.